Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Beckham. I have a 3-minute audio visual to show you, but a few details about the images and the processes used may be of interest first. An audio visual is a great way to present digital photographs, especially as we can now show the final result as an MP4 video. And we can show that on our computers, whether they're Windows or Macs, laptops, mobile devices, and also our large screen TVs. The circumstances around the shooting of these images may be of interest. I was in a fairly dense rainforest on a cloudy and wet day, so the light was extremely limited. And in the past, I would have always been shooting from a tripod in these conditions. However, I was using the new Canon R5 mirrorless camera, along with the 24 to 105mm lens. So I was able to take advantage of the image stabilized camera body and the lens, which worked together. All these images were handheld. Within Adobe's Bridge, using the preferences, I've just changed the details that we can see below all of the thumbnails, so we can see the technical details of the exposure, but also the focal length of the lens that was used. Now, as you can see with all of these examples, I had to set an ISO at 800 just to be able to capture these shots at 1/4 of a second, 1/13 of a second, 1/4 of a second, 1/5 of a second, and so on. They're quite slow shutter speeds, even given the focal length of the lens being used. Now, when you're in a rainforest in wet conditions, the lighting is perfect for the subject we've chosen. But it's not very comfortable to shoot in those conditions if you've got to carry an umbrella and maybe a tripod with the camera on top. Being able to walk around with just a camera makes the world of difference at times. The image stabilization of the Canon R5 and the lens combined does allow us to shoot at much lower shutter speeds than we would ever have thought possible in the past. When I was taking these images, I did take all of the normal precautions we would take, knowing that we're using shutter speeds on the low side. Keeping my elbows tucked into my body, trying to find a nice firm stance from which to shoot the images. And if there was a tree or something I could lean on, then I'd take advantage of that. The upshot is, all of the images are sharp. When I was preparing these images for the audio visual you're going to see in a moment, I resized the images to about 2560 pixels on the long side. Now, I did that not because it's essential to do that to create the audio visual. It isn't. We can use full-size images straight into the software if we want. I did it because I wanted to simplify these rainforest images just a little bit. So what do I mean by simplifying an image? Well, it's to remove detail, which does sound rather odd. Why would anyone buy a 45 megapixel camera and then remove some of the detail that that camera and lens has captured? It's a good question. These shots were taken with a polarizing filter attached to the lens to try to limit the amount of reflections that I'm getting off of the wet leaves. But the truth is that sometimes in situations like this, there are just so many leaves and detail in the image that removing some of that can often improve the visual quality of the image. It's a very similar thing we do when we create a monochrome image, because there we're removing detail. Now let me quickly demonstrate how I do this in Photoshop with this image. This image hasn't been reduced in size, it's the full size image. So the first thing I'm going to do is just reduce the size on the long side to 2560 pixels. And then we're going to apply a very light filter effect. Why have I sized the images to 2560 pixels? Well, the slideshow I'm about to make is 1920x1080 HD size. So those extra pixels do give me the opportunity to add a little bit of animation in my slideshow, either a pan or a zoom. So let me begin in Photoshop here by going to the image menu and choosing image size. There we can see we've got a picture which is 8192 pixels by 5464. And I want to reduce this on the long side to 2560, and all I've got to do is overtype that value, 2560, and click OK. I'll hit Ctrl+0 to fit the image back on screen. But now I need to select a filter. The filter I'm going to use is Topaz, Topaz Labs, Topaz Simplify 4. Now once this panel appears on screen, let me open it up fully so we get a nice big picture. Up at the top right, I'm going to increase the size of this image to 100% so we can evaluate what we're doing just a little easier. The filter I'd like to use is called Buzz Sim. I'm going to select it. Now this isn't a tutorial for Topaz filters, so I'm going to go straight to the one that I want and talk just about that. There's the Buzz Sim, and you can see that it's applied that setting rather too high. So if we come over to the global adjustments on the right hand side, what I need to do is to drop down the simplicity size considerably. So I'm going to drag this down to somewhere around 5 or 6. Once it's applied, we can check the application by going up to the processed and just clicking. There's the before, there's the after. Now you can see what I mean, how simplifying the image does give it that little special something. Before, rather a lot of detail everywhere, just taking a little bit away, and we have what we can see here. I think the colour's a little bit too high. It adds a little bit of extra colour too. So if you go to the adjust menu, and for this I will take it back down to fit on screen, I'm just going to take down that saturation boost. Let's take it down to about 80. There you can see it's much nicer. So once again, let's go to the processed. There's the original and the one that I'm going to use in my slideshow. Down to the bottom right, we need to click OK. That'll open up into Photoshop. Then we can save it into the folder where we're making our slideshow. So once that light filter has been applied, I would be saving this as a JPEG at a compression level of 8. Now the image you're viewing here is actually a panoramic image, and it wasn't shot using the Canon R5. In fact, it was shot using a Canon G16 compact camera which records just 12 megapixels per frame. Now I'll link to a video below on how this image came about. Now the software I'm using to make the audio visual you're about to view is called PTE AV Studio 10. I'll link to some relative web pages on this subject below, including where you can find the software. The Blackall range is a mountain range in southeast Queensland, Australia. It was named after Samuel Blackall, the second Governor of Queensland. The Blackall Range dominates the hinterland area of the Sunshine Coast, and it provides us photographers with plenty to photograph. Enjoy the audio visual.